Dobro jutro. Sorry, but these are the only two words that I know in Bosnian. And my name is Paolo Cecchi. I'm the regional sales manager for Italy and the Adriatic region in Carbon Black. For us, the Adriatic region are all the countries from Slovenia down to Greece. I will do my presentation today in Italian. Everybody understands Italian, right? Okay, good. Now it will be in English. Usually I do this presentation in English. So sorry if it will not be the best, but I hope you will understand. If not, please stop me and I will repeat again and again and again and again. So today I would like to speak about the advantages that as defenders we have. And we have some advantages. I will start speaking about the modern threatscape. So what we are seeing on the cybersecurity landscape. Then we will move to the advantages that we have as defenders. And finally, some tips on how to use these advantages to protect better your companies and your organizations. So what we are seeing today is a really complex environment out there. There are many groups working in the cybersecurity field as cyber attackers. We match more than 100 groups operational today. And the problem is that these groups are really well funded and well organized. The members, the employees of these groups, every day wake up, go into their office and launch cyber attacks. And do this for different reasons. And so we have different groups operating. We have criminal operations. They target organizations and individuals for financial information and identity information, identity steal. We have mercenary groups. They do the same, but upon request. So they are hired by a company or a government to do cyber attacks against a competitor, for instance. And then we have the state-sponsored groups, probably the worst ones. They are really well funded. They have a lot of tools, advanced tools that they can use. And they target organizations and governments to gain a geopolitical advantage. So it's very hard to have these kind of guys inside our companies and organizations. Have you seen the film The Martian? Yeah, okay. I was worried about that. So, in this film, Matt Damon every day has to face some changes. But at the same time, he has to defend himself from the threats coming from his environment. So, like Matt Damon, every day we are facing a constantly evolving landscape, compliance landscape. We face law changes, regulation changes. Think at GDPR or PCI DSS. We face internal policy organizational changes, compliance changes. So, whilst we keep up with change, we need to defend our company. And it's not easy to balance change with defense, because every change could be a new entry point for the attacker within our organization. So we should be very careful when managing change. We have to do it, we need to do it, but we need to be very careful. And unfortunately, time is never on our side. Attackers are becoming faster and more sophisticated. Even common Trojans, like for instance Emotet. Emotet is a Trojan that targeted banks and financial institutions during the last 4 or 5 or 6 years. But even common Trojans like Emotet have nation-state tools baked in. And the traditional technology, security technology that we have in place is not able to give us the high-fidelity data we need to fight against this kind of attacks. According to the Carbon Black, to our latest Carbon Black threat report that comes from our ecosystem of incident responders, 56% of incident response engagement involve now today instances of counter incident response. What does it mean? It means that attackers try to steal themselves, try to avoid incident response techniques carried out by the defenders. 56%. It is a huge number if you think about that. And so we need to have already in place the right processes and the right technologies to combat this kind of attacks. But this technology should provide us less complexity and not more, because we don't have time, we have not enough time to properly defend our organization. And security technology choice is huge. Think of all the vendors that are out there. Even in our endpoint arena, we see dozens of vendors working there. So it's not easy for the organization, for the companies to choose. But you need to choose wisely, because it's really important that you choose the right technologies. For instance, carbon black technology could be a good choice, in order to help you prevent and disrupt these attacks. It's really, really, really important. But as a defenders, we have some advantages. The first one is that we should know, or at least we should know, again, our terrain, our environment. This is not always true. Every day, every week, I met customers that doesn't really know their environment. And making this, they make their organization more vulnerable. Because if you don't know your environment, you start behind the attacker, because you don't know what assets that target is hitting. So before answering to an attack, responding to an attack, you have to understand what are your assets. And so you lose time. We should know our assets better than the adversary. And we need to choose the right technology that give us the possibility to act faster and disrupt the attack at the very beginning. So everybody is used to prevent attacks, because we are used to the traditional antivirus approach. Prevention, prevention, prevention. And you can use different techniques to prevent attacks. You can set up a good cyber hygiene internally. You can use firewalls, two-factor authentication, patching, application control. So a lot of stuff to do prevention. And do that, probably you are thinking like Spartans. Spartan, you know Spartans, yeah? Choose the place where they want to fight, which is relevant to know your terrain. They attacked and defended at once. They didn't wear plate mail. They didn't wear armor on the legs, because if they were hit on the legs, it was not fatal. And doing that, they can use bigger shields. So it was very, very difficult at that time to fight against Spartans, because they prevented all the type of attacks they can have from the adversary. But even the mighty Spartans are vulnerable to an insider who tells the attacker how to go behind their defensive lines. Or at least this is what Hollywood is saying, so hope it is true. And so the attackers looks where you are vulnerable. Try to find out how to be behind your enemy, your defensive lines. And so you can act in prevention. You can try to prevent everything, but it's really, really difficult. And beside that, when the attacker has bypassed your prevention layers, it is very, very difficult for you to understand what is happening and to act. For this reason, we should switch our mindset to something different. We can start thinking at detect what you cannot prevent. We will never stop and prevent 100% of threats. But we can gain visibility into what's happening within our environment. We can understand what the attacker is doing within our environment. Even if we are not able to stop an attack today, we should have the visibility to understand what the attacker has done. Has done privilege escalation, lateral movement, data exfiltration. This is really important, and it is relevant also to the compliance part, because GDPR asks that. So, switch your mindset thinking that the adversary is already within your organization. Probably each one of you would do something different in terms of protection. Because if you think that the attacker is already into your organization, you will work in a different way. You will prepare yourself in a different way. And what is the problem? The problem is that the attacker looks like just an insider. Today, modern attackers have the tools to steal into your organization. Okay. So they can evade prevention capabilities and they can arrive into your organization. If you are not able to see that, you are in a bad position. Okay. Nation-state leaks, like for instance Vault 7 or Shadow Brokers, has given also the common cyber criminals the tools to evade your prevention capabilities and to bypass them. And to steal into your organization. They look like processes, approved processes, or approved accounts. So, if you don't understand how they has arrived there and what they are doing, it's really difficult to discover them within your organization. So you have to think about visibility. It's really important. You have to find the right technologies that gives you visibility. You have to find the technologies that collect endpoint telemetry from the host, and so you can have visibility into what is happening. We have this kind of technology. This kind of technology exists today, but the most important thing is that you have to switch your mindset to something different. It's not just like a traditional antivirus. It is on-off. If I know, I stop. Otherwise, I don't stop, and I don't know what is happening. It's a recurring process. I register everything on endpoint, and I can stop attacks, of course. I can prevent attacks. But if I'm not able to do it right now, I have all the information to do it later and to prevent the same kind of attack in the future, because I can set up my policies in order to avoid the same kind of attack. Probably you have seen this slide many, many times. It is the cybersecurity kill chain. It describes all the steps that the attackers should do before doing their job. So there are different stages. Of course, if you can detect the attack earlier in the kill chain, you can disrupt the attacker sooner. And the damage, of course, is less. Most security technology, as I said before, like traditional antivirus, begin at the end of the kill chain. So, not very good for us. There are so many other steps that the attacker has to do his job. And again, why can we drive visibility up the kill chain in order to disrupt the attack earlier? It will be much easier, less effort for us, and probably the damage that the attacker could do is a little bit less. Again, deploy the technology that gives you the right visibility into what is happening. But how do we tip the scales? How can we use this advantage to protect better our organization. Probably you may have heard about the Mitre attack. Do you know the Mitre attack? Just one? Who is? Good. So we can speak about the Mitre attack later, if you want. I'm at the booth. So the Mitre attack is a framework that has put names on adversary behaviors. And why the Mitre attack is important? Because it works not just on signature or on this object is bad or not. It works on tactics, techniques, and procedures. These are methodologies of attack. So they are not associated with just one object. It's like an attacker doing this, then doing this, then doing this. And when you have this kind of, when you know this kind of methodologies, when you know how the attackers behave within your environment, you are able to focus on the threats that face your specific environment and not every environment. So you are facilitated in discovering new attacks because you only rely on the behaviors that are targeting your organization. And this gives us an opportunity because we have more than one chance to stop an attacker. If you see this example, maybe it's too technical, but there are different TTPs, techniques, tactics, and procedures that could be discovered during the kill chain. So in the early stage of the kill chain, or in each stage of the kill chain. So you can detect an attack earlier in the kill chain. And by the way, you only have to be one step ahead of the attacker. You don't need to be miles ahead. Just one step ahead. And with the right visibility and the right technology, you can do that quite easily. How can we do that? So first, always be prepared. Think at fire. Are you going to wait for the fire, or are you going to prepare? Probably the second. In every office, public or private, in every restaurant, in every cinema, there are fire extinguishers that can be used immediately when the fire breaks out. And in every organization, at least in Italy this happens very frequently, there are fire drills in order to prepare the employees against a fire incident. So why can we use the same approach against cyber attacks? We should prepare ourselves. We should be ready when the fire comes. Think about the ransomware. Do you do backups and restore tests? If you do that, probably you will be ready when a ransomware will hit you. But this is only in your realm of control. There is no need that the attacker launches a ransomware against you. You can decide when to do it, how to test it. So you have to be prepared. Short of money and want to reduce the impact of a ransomware, do backups and restore well. Easy. Probably you have heard the term defense in depth. It's a long-standing security term, principle, but one in need of change probably today. Defense in depth is building layers of prevention like the walls of this castle. But once the attacker has bypassed all these layers of prevention, so it is within your environment, it's very hard, it's really hard to fight against him. So rather than buying one-off products to build layers of prevention, we should think in a different way. it is much more important to think, to align our technologies, the technologies we choose to buy, to gain visibility into each stage of the kill chain. If you put or if you use a technology that gives you visibility into each stage of the kill chain, you can disrupt the attack earlier. You must make the attacker work harder. If it's too hard, he will move on. He will go to the next victim. And if you put the right technologies that gives you visibility along the kill chain, each stage, the attacker will have a much, much harder work. So we would like to speak not of defense in depth, but of disruption in depth. What does it mean, disruption in depth? Do you know the value of the activities carried out by cyber criminals on the dark web? Any idea? According to the World Trade Organization, it is a $1 trillion economy. $1 trillion. Do you have this money to protect your company? No, I'm sure not. I'm sure not. So, the only way to fight against these cyber criminals is to make them work harder, is to make their ROI cost more. If you put the right technologies along the kill chain and make their work harder, probably, unless they are really, really motivated, they will move on and leave your company without any problem. So really, really important, disruption in depth and non-defense in depth. Different concept. So what are the key takeaways from today? Always be prepared. We do have an advantage as cyber defenders. Don't think that we don't have an advantage. We have some advantages. We should know which are these advantages, and we should leverage these advantages to fight against cyber criminals. And finally, deep disruption, not deep defense. Make them work harder. Make the ROI cost more. Find the right technologies and align them with the kill chain, with each stage of the kill chain. So, I don't speak about Carbon Black. If you want to know who is Carbon Black, we are an EU-based company, a vendor. We were born in 2002, so we have 17 years of history. We are now around 1,300 employees. We are a public company listed on the NASDAQ. We are considered one of the leaders in the endpoint, next generation endpoint security. I don't like the term next generation, but it is what it is. And we have different solutions that could help you to understand what the attacker is doing within your environment, to block and stop attacks, not only attacks based on malware, but also fileless attacks. Fileless attacks is an attack that doesn't use any malicious object. It is like using macros or PowerShells or memory access. So when you don't have an object, a malicious object, all the solution based on analysis of object doesn't work. Think at signatures or machine learning. We have a behavioral analysis engine that helps you, that works on TTPs, techniques, tactics, and procedures, that helps you understand what is really doing the attacker within your environment. We register all the telemetry data from the endpoint, and we store this data for 30 days in our cloud, and all the stuff related to an alert for 180 days. What does this mean? If I'm not able to stop an attack today, I will have all the history. I can go back in time and see what the attacker has done. And we do that through our predictive security cloud. I don't know if, at least in Italy, the cloud is starting to be considered by customers. We have also some on-prem solutions, by the way. I hope that this is happening also here, because the cloud is the future of the security of the endpoint. This is what we believe. We are cloud native. We started and we was born like a cloud native company. And this is very important for us because the predictive security cloud gives us a lot of visibility and gives us the possibility to apply different analysis engine to detect and stop attack earlier in the kill chain. And we have a single agent, single console, and single platform. This means that you don't have to install different agents on your endpoints to do different jobs. We can do that with a single agent. And all the agents and all the capabilities and functionalities could be managed by a single console. So that's all for me. Thank you so much for your time. And if you want, I'm at the booth. Thank you.